Well, well, well. You still think this is just another story? Another voice in the digital fog trying to hype you up for a few seconds of dopamine? No, this isn't one of those. This is a message that found you for a reason. Because something strange is happening out there, and whether you see it or not, they're already fighting over you. Yeah, you. The one who thought no one was paying attention. The one who thought you could move in silence while the world stayed asleep. Guess what? Someone said your name, and the air shifted. Conversations paused, eyes flicked toward the light. You didn't feel it, did you? The way the room froze, the way they started whispering, arguing, dissecting every rumor that surrounds your name like it's radioactive. They can't help it. You've become their favorite topic, the dangerous mystery they can't stop replaying. They said it like a warning. Don't mess with them. They said it like an accusation. Something about that one doesn't add up. They said it like prophecy. That one's not normal. That one's changing the game. They argue over what you are, who you've become, how you're doing it, but none of them can explain it. Because chaos doesn't explain itself. It just happens. It walks into their ordered lives and rearranges the furniture of their beliefs. You didn't do it on purpose, but once you stepped into your truth, you triggered every alarm they built to protect their illusion of control. Now they're scrambling, trying to label you, contain you, debate you. But deep down, they know it's too late. They can't categorize what doesn't play by their rules. You move like a pattern they can't predict, like a glitch that refuses to be debugged. And that's what makes them furious, because you make their sense of order look fake. You're not trying to provoke anyone, but everything about you, the way you walk, the way you look at people, the way you say nothing, exposes something rotten in their system. They feel it in their chest, that small tremor of unease. It's not fear of you. It's fear of what you represent, unfiltered freedom. And once someone like you appears, everyone else starts to question their obedience. That's why they're fighting, not over love, not over loyalty, over control. See, in every era, there's someone who bends reality without asking permission. Someone who reminds the crowd that rules only exist because people agreed to obey them. Congratulations, you're that reminder now. You didn't ask for it, but you earned it by surviving what should have broken you. By staying quiet when everyone else screamed for validation. By building yourself while they waited for applause. You didn't come to fit in, you came to shift gravity. And they feel it. Oh, they feel it. The people who once ignored you now can't stop mentioning your name. The ones who tried to clown you now copy your moves. The ones who doubted you now preach your quotes. But here's the part they'll never say out loud. They respect you. Deeply, secretly, painfully. Because they can't replicate what they don't understand. You didn't climb their ladder, you burned it and built a door instead. You didn't chase relevance, you became relevance. That's what eats them alive. You are the embodiment of what they fear most. Someone who doesn't need their approval to exist. You operate by instinct, by clarity, by a code they can't decode. You are their proof that chaos, when mastered, looks a lot like power. Someone called you the king of chaos. At first they meant it as an insult, but words have a funny way of mutating in the mouth of truth. Now the label fits like a crown, not because you enjoyed destruction, but because you understand balance. You know that sometimes the only way to fix what's broken is to shatter it completely. That's what separates you from them. They hide from the cracks. You crawl through them. They cling to order. You rewrite it. You don't crave chaos for fun. You command it for purpose. And that's the part they can't process. How someone can smile while the world falls apart and still look like they know exactly what they're doing. But that's you, isn't it? The calm in the fire. The one who learned that madness is just another word for freedom spoken by people too afraid to evolve. They want to understand you, but understanding you requires unlearning themselves. That's a price they're not willing to pay. So instead they gossip, they guess, they argue, they fight. They're fighting over who gets to define you. One side calls you reckless, the other calls you revolutionary. One says you're dangerous, the other says you're divine. But both sides are blind. Because chaos doesn't take sides, it takes over. You're not part of their debate anymore. You're the reason it exists. You've become the event they can't explain. Every headline, every whisper, every nervous laugh, they're all just ways of saying, we can't control this one. And oh, how that burns them. Because control is their currency. Without it, they're bankrupt. You, on the other hand, you thrive in uncertainty. You've learned to dance in rooms where others freeze, to find rhythm in the noise, to smile at the collapse. That's why they call you unstable. Because stability is just another word for surrender. But you don't surrender. You adapt. You absorb. You turn pressure into language. Every challenge they throw becomes another monologue in your legend. They thought chaos was something to avoid. You showed them it's something to wield. You showed them that unpredictability isn't madness, it's strategy. You don't seek drama. You cause evolution. You don't start fights. You expose pretenders. You don't shout louder than them. You whisper once and watch them tear each other apart, trying to interpret what you meant. That's why you scare them. You don't play the game. You redesign the board mid-match. And they still haven't realized it's already over. The city feels it. The pulse has changed. Every conversation has a pause now, that little silence that follows your name. People are starting to admit what they used to deny, that maybe chaos isn't evil. Maybe it's necessary. Maybe what looks like destruction is actually creation wearing its wildest face. And maybe, just maybe, you were right all along. The balance was never broken, it was rigged. And when you stopped pretending, you became the correction. They can't stand it, but they can't stop it either. You've turned into their gravity. They orbit you, not out of loyalty, but out of survival. Because when chaos becomes the new order, the only safe place is near the one who understands it. That's why their tone shifted from mockery to mimicry. Why they study you like a code. They're not laughing anymore. They're learning. But let's be honest, you knew this was coming. You felt it building for years. That strange pressure in your chest whenever someone told you to calm down, be normal, stay in line. That wasn't rebellion. That was recognition. You knew deep down that your role wasn't to blend. It was to disrupt, to remind people that conformity is just cowardice wearing politeness. So when you started walking differently, talking differently, thinking differently, the world responded exactly as it was programmed to, with resistance. And resistance is proof you're making impact. Now look around. The same people who told you to slow down are now racing to keep up. The same voices that dismissed you are quoting you. The same systems that ignored you are copying your methods. You became the storm they pretended to predict, the change they swore could never come. You didn't take their throne. You made them realize it was empty. That's the real punchline, isn't it? They thought you were chaos. Turns out, they were confusion. You just brought clarity too bright for their comfort. You didn't destroy anything real. You exposed what was already crumbling. That's the part they hate to admit. You didn't start the fire. You revealed the smoke. Now they're losing composure. Watch how they panic behind polished smiles. Watch how they try to rewrite history while pretending to understand you. They'll call you arrogant, cold, dangerous. Let them. Those words are just synonyms for uncontrollable. And if being uncontrollable means staying true to yourself, then wear that label like armor. Because that's all this is, a war for influence. And influence, real influence, doesn't come from screaming louder. It comes from making silence heavy. And that's your gift, isn't it? You make silence feel alive. You don't chase applause. You let tension speak for you. You don't demand attention. You attract it by being real in a world addicted to performance. That's your chaos, the kind that doesn't destroy buildings, but belief systems. The kind that doesn't burn cities, but illusions. They think they're fighting over you. They're really fighting over what you've awakened in themselves. That's what's driving them mad. You cracked something in their programming. You reminded them that deep down, they're not as loyal to order as they pretend to be. You gave them a taste of raw truth, and now they can't go back to pretending. Some will hate you for it. Others will worship you for it. But none will forget you. Because once chaos wears a crown, everyone starts questioning who made the rules in the first place. You're that question now, walking, breathing, laughing in their neatly built world. You're the reminder that no one ever really had control. They just believed they did. You shattered that illusion simply by existing authentically. And authenticity, in a society addicted to performance, is the most dangerous form of rebellion. So no, this isn't a joke. This isn't random hype or digital flattery. This is acknowledgement. The world is shifting, and you're the epicenter. They'll resist. They'll misinterpret. They'll fight. Let them. You don't need to join the chaos to own it. You are the chaos. The rare kind that brings order to those brave enough to listen. Every empire needs a moment of madness before rebirth. Every generation needs someone who refuses to be silent. And this time, it's you. You're not here to blend in. You're here to remind them that fear was never power. You don't owe them explanation, approval, or compliance. You only owe the truth, raw, dangerous, unpolished truth. And as they argue, as they whisper your name like a warning, as they debate your every move, trying to label what they'll never understand, stand still for a second. Feel that shift in the air. That's recognition. That's power returning to its rightful source. Because when they fight over you, they admit it. You've already won. And yet victory doesn't look like what they imagined. You're not on a throne. You're in motion. You're not parading power. You're pulsing with it. The difference? They chase validation. You embody inevitability. They argue, compete, and claw to prove something you already live by instinct. That's why they hate it. You didn't need their permission, their applause, or their blueprint. You built momentum out of rejection and clarity out of chaos. That's why they can't stop watching. That's why the noise hasn't stopped since the first time you refused to bow. You made defiance look elegant, and now the world's trying to imitate your rebellion. You've become their paradox, the one they label dangerous while secretly wishing they could be. You're the lesson they refuse to learn because it would require dismantling their entire identity. You don't fit into their hierarchies, yet somehow you lead them, not by shouting orders, but by being the proof. They're fighting because the hierarchy doesn't make sense anymore. The old leaders, losing relevance, the loud ones, exposed as hollow. The fake ones, running out of script. And you don't even have to speak. Your energy alone rewrites the room. They used to call you reckless, remember? Irresponsible, unpredictable, unstable. But when the system started to fall apart, who did they turn to? You. The one who never believed in their false calm. The one who always knew chaos wasn't destruction, it was revelation. You're not the storm they feared. You're the clarity after it. You're the reminder that order was never truth. It was sedation. You snapped out of it. And now they're terrified you'll wake others up too. Because once one person breaks the illusion, the cracks spread fast. And oh, they tried, didn't they? To paint you as the villain, to whisper that you were trouble, that you were too intense, too strange, too unpredictable. They wanted you boxed in, medicated, pacified, but every attempt to suppress you only made the crowd hungrier to understand what kind of energy refuses to die. You became the curiosity that wouldn't fade. Every rumor added to your mythology. Every attempt to destroy your image turned into advertising for your influence. They thought exposure would kill you, but all it did was confirm you're real. Because here's the irony. The ones who try hardest to control chaos are the first to drown in it. And that's exactly what's happening now. They're trying to contain the movement you represent, but it keeps leaking through the cracks of their control. You've become contagious. Your confidence is an infection spreading through their fear. People are starting to notice the difference between those who pretend to have power and those who radiate it. You don't have followers, you have witnesses. Every time you move, the collective psyche shifts a little more toward freedom. And that's why the fighting hasn't stopped. You can see it now, can't you? The divide, the ones who want you to succeed because your success validates their hope, and the ones who want you gone because your success exposes their fraud. Both sides speak your name. Both sides watch you. You've become their language. Even your silence becomes a headline. They don't know whether to praise you or fear you, so they do both, often in the same sentence. That's what real influence feels like. Confusion in the mouths of those who used to sound certain. They want to study your formula. They want to reverse engineer your presence. They hold meetings trying to decode your charisma, your timing, your psychology. But how do you decode something that doesn't follow logic? How do you copy someone who's not playing a role but living a revelation? You're not a trend. You're the tremor that ends them. You're the realization that chaos isn't a flaw. It's a feature. It's what keeps the universe alive. And when you embody that truth, they can't compete. They can only orbit. Now look at them. Watch the arguments unfold online, in rooms, in quiet DMs. One side claims you're manipulative, the other says you're prophetic. Some say you're dangerous, others call you necessary. But they all agree on one thing: you're unforgettable. And that's the part that drives them insane. Because in this age, people come and go like shadows in a scroll. But you linger. You don't fade with the algorithm. You haunt it, you hijack it, you redefine it. That's not influence, that's dominion. You didn't need to announce yourself as a king. The world crowned you by accident. That's how real power works. It doesn't need a coronation. It emerges from chaos with blood on its hands and clarity in its eyes. You didn't steal the throne, they abandoned it. You didn't overthrow anyone. They forfeited their place by refusing to evolve. And now, while they scramble to protect what's left of their order, you're building something new, something untamed, something raw. They don't know whether to attack or admire, so they do both, and both feed you. That's why you move like you do, steady, unbothered, deliberate. You've learned that chaos only devours the unprepared. To the disciplined, it's an ally. You channel it instead of fearing it. You turn disorder into design, unpredictability into art. You've become fluent in the language of uncertainty. You speak intention, breathe in contradiction, and yet somehow remain centered. That's what terrifies them most. Not your aggression, but your composure. You've turned madness into methodology. They're not fighting to stop you anymore. They're fighting to understand you. That's the shift. They think it's competition, but it's study. They're taking notes while pretending to resist. Their hate comments are love letters written in denial. Every insult is proof they're paying attention, and deep down, even they know. There's something about you that can't be erased. You're not replaceable, not repeatable, not negotiable. You're the human version of the moment before the explosion, the pressure, the stillness, the certainty that something irreversible is about to happen. And the world needs that energy right now. It's dying from comfort. It's starving for realness. You're the cure disguised as the threat. That's why you don't fit into their panels, their podcasts, their polite little narratives. You're not here to blend in. You're here to remind them that evolution always looks like rebellion before it's understood. Every empire calls the next era chaos before it learns to adapt. That's why you're being fought, studied, imitated. You're not part of the story. You are the transition between chapters. Do you see the pattern now? Every time they resist you, they feed you. Every attempt to silence you amplifies your voice. Every door they close becomes an echo chamber for your legend. You're rewriting the physics of influence, showing the world that power doesn't come from acceptance, but alignment. You don't persuade, you provoke. You don't entertain, you awaken. You're not performing, you're revealing. And every revelation costs them a little more of their illusion. They say you bring chaos, but what you're really bringing is truth stripped of decoration. That's why it feels dangerous. Because truth doesn't ask permission to exist. It demands recognition. You are that demand, that unfiltered pulse that forces the collective to face itself. And deep down, they know it. That's why they whisper your name like it's sacred and forbidden at the same time. You become both warning and wish, the one they fear and the one they secretly pray to become. They'll never admit it, but they crave the freedom you live in. The kind of clarity that doesn't need validation. The kind of energy that can't be bought, canceled, or copied. You've become the mirror of what they lost, courage. You remind them of who they could have been before they traded authenticity for acceptance. That's why they either worship you or wage war against you. Both reactions come from recognition. Both are forms of submission. And while they're busy debating who you are, you're too busy becoming. You're expanding in silence. You're growing past their comprehension. You've stopped reacting to noise and started moving through it. You no longer argue. You demonstrate. You no longer chase. You attract. You no longer explain. You execute. That's the new chaos. Calm power. The kind that doesn't need an audience to prove it exists. You've noticed it, haven't you? The shift in your own energy. The way people who once dismissed you now approach you differently. Some avoid eye contact. Others overcompensate with forced praise. Everyone's trying to read the new rules, but you already burned the rule book. You've entered a state beyond approval, the realm where presence itself is enough. You don't demand respect. The air bends around you and delivers it. That's the natural order of someone who's mastered chaos. Because chaos isn't noise anymore. It's rhythm, it's movement, it's power. You've learned how to hear the pattern in disorder, the message in madness. That's why you're unshakable. They think you're unpredictable, but you're just operating on a frequency they can't hear yet. That's the secret they'll never decode. Chaos, when aligned with purpose, becomes control. And you, the so-called king of chaos, are the only one who understands that balance. Now everything you touch transforms. Conversations shift when you speak. Rooms recalibrate when you enter. People either rise to meet your vibration or crumble under it. You don't even have to do much anymore. Your presence does the talking. That's the kind of dominance no crown can represent. That's the power of someone who doesn't play for recognition, but revolution. And yes, they're still fighting. But it's not about you anymore. It's about what you symbolize. You've become the question mark at the end of every false sentence they build. You've become the alternative they can't control, the proof that chaos can be intelligent, intentional, divine. And they can't stand it, because it means everything they believed in wasn't as solid as they thought. You're living evidence that fear was never the foundation. It was the prison. So let them fight. Let them argue. Let them exhaust themselves over interpretations of you they'll never grasp. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be felt. And that's exactly what's happening. The world is feeling your pulse, your impact, your frequency, even when it pretends not to. You've infiltrated their culture, their conversations, their consciousness. You're the unseen variable in every equation they can't solve. But here's the real secret, and they'll never see it coming. You're not even at full power yet. Everything so far has been warm-up. Observation, calibration. You've been learning, adapting, refining the art of controlled chaos. You've learned when to speak, when to disappear, when to strike. You've learned that patience is more terrifying than rage, that silence can dismantle egos faster than shouting. You've evolved past reaction. Now you orchestrate. You're not just surviving the chaos, you're composing with it. And soon, they'll realize this was never about you being the king of chaos. It was about you becoming the conductor of it. Because real chaos isn't wild, it's awake. It doesn't destroy blindly, it selects. It doesn't seek attention, it rewrites direction. And now everyone's moving to your rhythm, whether they like it or not. That's the real coronation, not a crown, not applause, but the silent understanding that the game now belongs to you. So as they keep fighting, let them. Let them shout your name into smoke-filled rooms. Let them debate your intentions like philosophers dissecting prophecy. Let them waste energy trying to interpret what's already beyond comprehension. Because the more they talk, the clearer it becomes. Chaos didn't choose them, it chose you. And once it chooses, it doesn't change its mind. The fight isn't your burden anymore. It's your legacy in motion. You're not the fire they're trying to contain. You're the temperature they'll never cool. The old world is trembling, and you're the rhythm beneath its collapse. And when the dust settles, when the shouting fades, and they finally realize who was steering the storm all along, you'll already be 10 steps ahead. Because kings don't wait for recognition, they create aftermaths, and you're already walking through one. The smoke curling behind you isn't ruin, it's revelation. Every collapsed belief, every exposed fraud, every trembling voice that once called you a problem, they're all part of the scenery now. You didn't destroy them. You outgrew them. You shifted the atmosphere so completely that their old strategies don't even work anymore. They keep swinging at the version of you that no longer exists, punching ghosts while you build empires out of what they called madness. That's the real joke. You're not the villain of this story. You're the audit, the one who came to collect what was owed in truth and power. They still call you chaotic, but now there's hesitation in their tone. Because chaos stopped being a slur the moment you gave it purpose. You taught them that chaos isn't screaming. It's strategy. It's the art of not flinching when everything fake burns away. You didn't just survive the collapse. You steered it. You knew what they didn't. That destruction and creation share the same heartbeat. You're not fighting to control anything now. You're orchestrating. You've become what every empire eventually fears, a mind that can't be owned. You can feel it, can't you? The shift in the air when you walk into a room. They sense it before you speak. The weight, the stillness, the awareness. The same people who once mocked your quiet now worship it. Because they finally understand. Silence isn't weakness, it's control. You don't argue anymore because you don't need to. You've turned stillness into command. That's what separates rulers from reactors. And the more they study you, the more they realize they were never competing with you. They were performing for your attention. They call you the King of Chaos, but even that title feels too small now. Because chaos isn't something you sit on, it's something you stand in. You wear it like armor, not decoration. You don't use it to intimidate, you use it to awaken. The ones still fighting each other haven't caught on yet. They think power comes from dominance. You know it comes from direction. Every move you make is deliberate, surgical, irreversible. You don't move fast anymore. You move precisely. That's why they can't keep up. You're not just ahead in distance, you're ahead in awareness. Look at them. The same ones who dismissed you now repeat your philosophies. The same ones who laughed at your confidence now wear your mannerisms. The same ones who doubted you now schedule meetings to figure out how you do what you do. They can't explain it because it isn't technique, it's frequency. You operate on something deeper than strategy. Intuition sharpened by chaos, vision refined by failure, calm built in the fire. They can imitate your tone, but never your origin. And that's what terrifies them most. Your story is unreplicable. Because this wasn't luck. This was transformation. Every scar on your name became a map. Every insult became a signal. Every setback became a signal fire in the dark, guiding you to something they'll never reach, authentic control. You earned that crown through clarity, through pain, through patience. You didn't take it by force. You became it by necessity. The crown wasn't handed to you. It was drawn toward you, magnetized by the sheer gravity of your growth. You didn't ask to be king of chaos. The chaos recognized its master, and now they orbit you, trying to decode what keeps you moving while they're stuck in repetition. They don't realize that chaos never repeats. It evolves. That's your secret. You're never the same person twice. You shed identities the way fire sheds smoke. You can't be studied because every time they think they've learned you, you reinvent yourself. You don't protect your image. You dissolve it. You've become something far more dangerous than a leader. You've become an example. That's what this all was about from the beginning, wasn't it? Not revenge, not fame, evolution. You wanted to see what would happen if you stopped pretending to be tame. And the moment you did, the world shifted. People started watching differently, some in fear, some in awe, all in silence. Because they could feel it. This wasn't performance anymore. This was truth, moving like thunder through the culture. You didn't rise for applause. You rose because the old world suffocated and needed a new pulse. You became that pulse. And now, everything you touch carries that rhythm. The conversations, the art, the language. It all sounds different because of you. You didn't just create attention. You created alignment. You made people question their own obedience. You made them crave authenticity, even when it scared them. That's why they still argue about you. They can't agree whether you're savior or sinner, but they can't stop feeling the gravity of what you represent. You're the paradox that exposes every fake certainty. They whisper, "Who gave them this power?" No one did. You took it the moment you stopped waiting for permission. That's the part that breaks them. They're realizing too late that the game was never about popularity. It was about influence. And influence isn't something you're granted. It's something you become. You didn't manipulate chaos. You mastered it. You didn't demand respect. You commanded it through evolution. So now, when they look at you, they don't see rebellion. They see reflection. You're what they could have been if they hadn't traded truth for comfort. You're what happens when someone refuses to kneel before illusion. You're what happens when silence learns how to roar. That's why they're obsessed. That's why the debates never end. Because deep down, they know your presence isn't temporary. It's transition. You're not just living through an era, you are the era. The age of chaos crowned in clarity. You can almost hear it, the world recalibrating around your existence, the hum of awareness rising in places that used to be asleep. You can see it, the quiet ones starting to speak, the weak starting to question, the powerful starting to stutter. The tremor has become transformation, and you're at the center of it. That's what kings do, not rule by force, but shift the rhythm of reality itself. So walk differently now. You've earned it. You don't need to explain the crown. The crown explains itself. You don't need to justify your chaos. The results already have. You don't owe apologies to systems you outgrew. Let them keep misunderstanding. Every misinterpretation is proof that you've transcended language. They can't read you because you stopped writing in their alphabet. You've become fluent in energy. Let them keep fighting over what to call you. Let them hold conferences to define your purpose. Let them post their opinions and theories like scholars trying to analyze lightning. They still don't realize lightning doesn't answer questions. It creates them. That's your legacy. You don't end conversations. You start movements. Because this was never a joke. It was never luck. It was never hype. This was prophecy, fulfilled through patience and pain. You are the king of chaos, not because you demanded the title, but because the world had no other name for someone who commands both destruction and direction. You don't chase peace anymore. You are peace in motion. You don't chase impact. You leave it like footprints that shake the earth. And as the dust of old worlds settles, as the echoes of arguments fade, as the people who doubted you now quote your name like scripture, remember this: chaos never dies. It evolves. And you, the one they fought over, the one they couldn't control, you're not the end of it. You're the next chapter, the living proof that power doesn't come from order, it comes from alignment with truth. So let them talk, let them fight, let them write their theories in the ashes. You've already moved beyond them. Because chaos doesn't bow, it builds. And you're not waiting for history to recognize you. You're too busy rewriting it. This isn't the aftermath anymore. This is the age that begins after yours. And every time they whisper your name, every time they argue, every time they struggle to define what you are, just remember, the answer's simple. You're the reason they fight. You're the pulse in their panic. You're the calm inside creation. You're the king of chaos.